My name is Lisa, and I'm about to tell you how my own parents stole $5 million from my dying godmother, and how I made them pay in the most devastating way possible. This isn't just about money. This is about dignity, betrayal, and a revenge so perfectly crafted that it changed an entire industry. If you've ever felt powerless watching someone you love being mistreated, this story is for you. Hit that like button if you believe in justice, and subscribe, because we're diving deep into one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll ever hear. Patricia was more than my godmother. She was my compass. While my parents, Mark and Elizabeth, lived their predictable suburban lives, Patricia had traveled the world, collected stories like souvenirs, and treated life like an adventure waiting to unfold. Her apartment was a museum of memories, Moroccan rugs, Italian ceramics, leather-bound journals from every country she'd visited. When the doctors delivered her Alzheimer's diagnosis, Patricia did something that would haunt my family forever. She called my parents into her lawyer's office and handed them a check for $5 million. $5 million. I wasn't there, but Mark told me later what she said, his voice thick with what I thought was emotion, but now recognized as greed. Use this to make Lisa's days soft. Promise me she'll have dignity, comfort, and care that honors the woman she's always been. My parents cried. They promised. They held her weathered hands and swore on everything sacred that Patricia would live like a queen. For exactly 3 weeks, they kept that promise. The linen napkins appeared on Patricia's table. Elizabeth spoke in hushed, reverent tones. Mark brought fresh flowers twice a week. They hired a private nurse, Stacy, who read to Patricia from her travel journals. "We'll make sure she has everything," Elizabeth whispered to me during one of those carefully orchestrated visits. She deserves the world, but something felt wrong. There was a performance quality to their care, like actors who'd memorized their lines but forgotten to feel the emotions. I caught Mark checking his watch during Patricia's stories. Elizabeth's smiles never reached her eyes, and Stacy kept glancing at her phone. Then came the phone call that shattered everything. "Lisa, honey," Elizabeth's voice crackled through my phone. "We found Patricia a wonderful new place. Very exclusive. She'll be so much happier there." Mapleview Senior Living looked impressive in the brochure. Manicured lawns, smiling residents, promises of dignified care in a home-like environment. But when I walked through those doors for the first time, the smell hit me like a physical blow. Bleach, industrial disinfectant, and underneath it all, the unmistakable odor of boiled broccoli and human despair. The reality was devastating. 30 residents crammed into a facility meant for 20, 2 aides working the night shift for the entire building. Patricia sat in a wheelchair by a window that had been painted shut, staring at nothing, her magnificent travel journals nowhere to be seen. "Where are her books?" I asked the day supervisor, Cindy. She shrugged. "Personal items get lost. Happens all the time." I found Patricia's room, a sterile box with fluorescent lighting and a plastic mattress. Her Moroccan rugs were gone. Her photographs were gone. Even her jewelry, gifts from decades of adventures, had vanished. In their place sat a woman I barely recognized, wearing a hospital gown that gaped at the back, her once bright eyes clouded with confusion and neglect. That night, I went home and found something that made my blood freeze. Sitting on Mark's desk was a calendar, and there, circled in red ink, were the words that would fuel my rage for months to come. Guardianship petition, full control. They weren't just stealing her money. They were planning to steal her voice, her choice, her very identity. I started visiting Patricia every single night after work, smuggling in her leather travel journals like contraband. The staff didn't care. They were too overwhelmed, too underpaid, too broken by a system that treated human beings like inventory. When I read to Patricia from her journals, something miraculous happened. The fog in her eyes would lift, just for moments, and she'd remember. "Tangier," she'd whisper, her voice barely audible. The wind tried to steal my scarf. "I'll give it a try." Those brief moments of clarity became my lifeline and my torment. She was still in there, trapped behind walls of neglect and indifference. Meanwhile, my parents were living like lottery winners. Mark bought a Tesla, Elizabeth renovated their kitchen with a marble island that cost more than most people's cars. They'd transformed from middle-class suburbanites into country club members, all funded by Patricia's trust. When I confronted them, their justifications made my skin crawl. "The facility is expensive," Mark said, not meeting my eyes. "We have to manage her resources responsibly." "Patricia would want us to be comfortable too," Elizabeth added. "We're sacrificing so much to care for her." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake them until their teeth rattled. Instead, I started documenting everything. Night after night, I sat in that fluorescent-lit hellhole, taking notes like a war correspondent. The night nurse, Cindy, became my ally. She'd slip Patricia real tea and fresh fruit when the supervisors weren't looking. "I've been doing this for 20 years, she told me quietly. "This place isn't the worst I've seen, but it's close." I learned that Patricia's care plan included applesauce instead of fresh fruit to save money. Her medications were generic substitutes that left her more confused. The windows had been painted shut because residents might get ideas. The ratio of staff to residents at night was criminal. 2 aides for 30 people, most of whom needed constant care. My parents called this sustainable. I called it torture. But when I tried to move Patricia to a better facility, I hit a wall of bureaucracy and legal barriers. Mark and Elizabeth had been clever. They'd structured everything legally, making themselves her temporary guardians while the permanent paperwork was processed. Every lawyer I consulted told me the same thing. Unless I could prove abuse or mismanagement, my hands were tied. That's when I called Andrew O'Rourke, a lawyer who specialized in elder abuse cases. Andrew was different. He listened, he cared, and most importantly, he believed me. "There's always a paper trail," he said. "Money leaves footprints. We just need to find them." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Patricia herself. Hidden in a safety deposit box that Mark and Elizabeth didn't know existed, we found Patricia's real will. But it wasn't just legal documents. There was a video, dated just 6 months before her diagnosis, on screen. Patricia sat in her apartment, surrounded by her treasures, speaking with the clarity and strength I remembered. If you're watching this, it means I've lost myself, and someone has made choices for me. But I'm making a choice now, while I still can. My heart pounded as her recorded voice filled the lawyer's office. I leave my apartment buildings, my shops, and my little seaside plot to Lisa, on one condition. She must use these resources to build a public standard for elder care, something that ensures dignity for people like me. If she won't or can't do this, everything goes to charity. Nothing goes to anyone who warehouses human beings like forgotten inventory. She paused, and for a moment, it felt like she was looking directly at me. "I'm throwing you a rope, darling. Grab it." The codicil was legally bulletproof. More importantly, it gave me the weapon I needed to destroy my parents' carefully constructed lie. Andrew and I spent weeks building our case. We tracked every penny of Patricia's money, the Tesla payments, the kitchen renovation, the country club membership, the designer clothes. We documented the facility's violations, understaffing, food substitutions, medication changes, the painted windows, the missing personal items. But I wanted more than just legal victory. I wanted to create something that would ensure this never happened to anyone else. Working 18-hour days at my kitchen table, I developed something I called the Maple Standard, a comprehensive, public scorecard that anyone could use to evaluate elder care facilities. It wasn't just about regulations. It was about humanity. The Maple Standard included staffing ratios, minimum 1.6 during the day, 110 at night food quality, fresh fruit weekly, hydration options outside of meals, environment, windows that open, accessible temperature controls, personal items allowed and protected, care response, call bells answered within 5 minutes, individualized pain management, gentle end-of-life options humanity factors, staff who spoke residents' languages, real music, flexible visiting hours. The court hearing was everything I'd dreamed of, and more devastating than I'd imagined. Mark and Elizabeth arrived in their expensive clothes, confident and condescending. They'd prepared presentations about reasonable care costs and sustainable resource management. They talked about Patricia like she was a budget line item, not a human being who'd trusted them with everything. Then we played the video. Watching my parents' faces as Patricia's recorded voice filled the courtroom was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Mark went pale. Elizabeth's hands started shaking. Their lawyer kept shuffling papers, clearly realizing his clients had lied to him about everything. "Your Honor," Andrew said, his voice steady and strong, "the defendants have systematically looted the plaintiff's trust fund while consigning her to substandard care. They violated not just the terms of her gift, but the basic dignity she deserves as a human being." We presented our evidence methodically. Bank records showing Patricia's money flowing to personal luxuries, photos of her sterile room versus her former apartment, testimony from Cindy about the facility's conditions, medical records showing her decline under their care. The judge, an older woman named Patricia Richardson, listened to everything before asking the question that ended my parents' scheme. "Define soft care for me. Each of you." Mark stumbled through an answer about clean sheets and regular meals. Elizabeth talked about professional. Supervision and medical oversight, empty. Words from empty people. Then, Judge Richardson turned to me. "Windows that open," I said, my voice clear and strong. "A hand is already reaching for you before you fall. Music that belongs to you, not just whatever's cheapest. Food that tastes like food. The right to keep the things that make you who you are." The ruling was swift and brutal. Guardianship petition denied. Patricia's assets frozen pending investigation, and a court-appointed fiduciary to oversee her actual care. My parents were ordered to pay restitution and faced potential criminal charges for elder abuse. But the real revenge was just beginning. Within weeks of launching the Maple Standard publicly, everything changed. Families armed with stopwatches started timing call bell responses. Hospital discharge planners added Maple scorecards to their packets. Facilities received anonymous report cards highlighting their failures and suggesting improvements. The worst facility in our area threatened to sue me for defamation. A week later, they quietly installed new windows that actually opened and started providing fresh water jugs. A luxury facility that had been coasting on reputation hired a part-time pianist named Christopher, who played in the hallways, bringing music back into lives that had been reduced to existence. Patricia, now in a facility that actually cared about her dignity, smiled when she heard Christopher's piano. "You did a thing," she whispered to me during one of our visits. "Maple," I replied, squeezing her hand. Trees, remember. My parents tried one final legal challenge, claiming the Maple Standard was unregulated and caused harm to business operations. The judge allowed Maple to continue with transparent methods and the right of reply for facilities. More importantly, care directors with tired faces but bright eyes started contacting me. "We've been begging for minimum standards for years. Now we can prove what we need." Patricia died on a honey-colored morning with her window open, my hand in hers, and Christopher's piano drifting down the hallway. Between breaths, she squeezed my hand twice, our old signal for "I love you," and stepped off like the traveler she'd always been, someone who knew all the turns by heart. The probate was simple. I placed all of Patricia's properties into a trust that funds Maple Standard improvements and upgrades care directly. We publish Better This Week every Thursday. Sometimes it's something small like a fixed door latch or a piano tuning, but each improvement represents dignity restored. Hospitals now require Maple Compact certification for preferred placement partnerships. City contracts follow facilities with green leaf ratings. The standard has spread to 12 states and counting. People ask if Maple made me rich. It didn't. But it made care visible, and visibility is the enemy of neglect. My parents kept their marble island and their Tesla. They tell their friends I'm passionate about elder care, like it's a hobby instead of a mission born from their betrayal. Their names aren't on anything that plays music or opens windows or respects the dignity of aging. On Sundays, I sit with Patricia's blue leather journal and record 5 soft things from the week. Cindy taught a resident to say plum in Polish. Average call bell response time dropped to 3:41. Fresh oranges appeared in 3 facilities. Night staffing ratios improved at Maple View. Cindy got the raise she deserved after 20 years of caring. On the anniversary of Patricia's death, I stood on her little Atlantic plot and read aloud from her final journal entry. Not everything you hold tight deserves holding, but some things do. I check the Maple Standard app on my phone and see green leaves spreading like spring across a map of care facilities. The tide writes the same sentence on the shore over and over until even the sand remembers what Patricia taught me. Turn money into a blanket, not a whip. Keep windows open. Pour fresh water. Make soft choices that are also strong ones. That's how you turn betrayal into justice and grief into a force that changes everything. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible revenge stories, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Lisa's situation? Remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting even, it's making the world better for everyone who comes after.